Okay, you're all set, Mary Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Kelly Marquez. I'm the Acquisitions and Cataloging Manager for the Warrenville Public Library District, and I also have the honor and privilege of being a co-chair of this user group. If you would like to join me in welcoming our new co-chair, Susanna Leyva, who is the head of technical services for the Palos Heights Public Library. Welcome, Susanna.
Thank you.
And of course, we have our regular SWAN staff here with us, Samantha Deedle, Claudia Nixon, Cynthia Romanowski, and Vicki Totten.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So first up, we're going to talk about barcodes, and this is Vicki.
Good morning, everyone. We did have a question out on the forums asking what vendor you use for barcodes. I think that they mentioned the vendor they were using was no longer doing the barcodes. So we just wanted to discuss what you are doing for your barcodes, and just that there's a reminder that it is part of the circulation policy that the barcodes that you use are CODA-BAR. So we do those CODA-BAR barcodes are 14 digits long, and they should always start, since this is AC and cataloging, they should start with a 3 because it's for material, and then your library barcode prefix. So that's my reminder for that out there. So who would like to talk about the vendor they use for their barcodes?
So I noticed that, hi everyone, I'm Suzanne. I noticed that Rebecca just put ID label. The posting at Swan, the posting in the Swan forum was that ID label changed the way they do the payment. So the timing and everything has been very long. So this library want to know if anyone else using someone else other than ID label. I know I personally use ID label. I used before they did their change. So I'm more interested into seeing who else uses a different vendor other than ID label.
Warrenville uses Symbology Inc. And they do a phenomenal job. They're quick and the quality is pretty good. Although recently I've noticed that sometimes they come on sheets and sometimes the cutting isn't perfect, only on like one or two of an entire sheet of labels. So, but other than that, I have no issue with them.
I know with ID label, this past order, one issue I did have is that about 2 to 3 sheets didn't scan, and I didn't realize this till after the items were being processed, and I was being told that the barcode didn't scan. So it's been a hard catch, because if these items are going out into interlibrary loan, we're getting them back because the barcode is not scanning, and kind of a pain.
Joy, I see your comment. I'm going to get the contact information for Symbology Inc. And I'll put that in the chat.
Someone else posted that they use CompuType. They had no complaints, good experience. That's the first time I've heard about CompuType, so I'm going to look into that one too.
Hi, this is Joy from Tinley Park. We used to use CompuType, but we found that ID label was more cost effective.
So if anyone has any other barcode label, feel free to post in the Swan forum to update everyone. Or if you know, if you're in the meeting for someone else, see if they can just post in the forum anything new. We'll be happy to try those out too. So thank you very much.
Moving on. Next are Tony boxes. I know we have talked in this group in the past about Tony boxes. However, I had a question because it has, there have been whispers at our library that we may be possibly adding these to our collection in the next fiscal year. But I wanted to know, for libraries that do circulate the Tony boxes, do they circulate with the figurines? And if so, how many? Or do the figurines circ separately than the device? I'm just curious as to how that works.
Hi, this is Kathleen at LSIP. We circulate the Tony boxes with the actual figurines, but how many depends upon how many our youth services librarians want in the batch, because they kind of, they theme them. So we have like a Spanish Latino songs, we have like Disney characters, we have dinosaurs, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So like roughly how many figurines would be in it with a Tony box? It varies. It could be like 3 to 5 or 1.
I think the biggest one we have is 4, and the dinosaurs one has just 1.
Okay.
Hi, this is Anne Marie over at the Glen Ellen Library. Right now we are circulating 3 Tonys, and each Tony has 3 characters. What we do is we kind of make them into a kit. We are just going to, we're actually in the midst of repackaging them into an actual Tony case that's a little bit more structured for the Dropbox. People tend to drop them in there. So we're taking them out of the clear backpacks and putting them into these new cases. But our marketing department also does branding for them. So on the, it'll show which Tonys they are, the name of the Tonys, each character, so that if it gets removed or we're not sure, we can actually search that to see which, to make sure that it gets back with the correct Tony. We also take in the picture here on this slide that you're showing in the PowerPoint, we take that track list of the songs or the stories along with the character, and we laminate those together so that people know which songs or stories are on each character, which we were getting feedback from our members about. So we've added that as well.
Thank you so much. This is good to know. And the Tony, just Anne-Marie, one quick question. The Tony box cases, are you getting those from the Tony box website? Is that
Actually, we
case?
are getting them from Amazon, and they come in a array of colors. So
Oh. Okay, I will check that out.
great.
Yes, I would like to add something. We are also switching our Tony cases from these clear plastic bags to the actual Tony cases that are cloth, because we've been replacing them so often that we just feel that if we just actually spend a little bit more money, they'll actually last longer. The way we process our Tonys is we process our characters separate. So we have 4 Tonys with the original character, which what you see on the slide. And we have about, I can say roughly 30 to 40 characters. And patrons, we're noticing now that patrons are checking out characters more than the Tony boxes because they probably have one at home. But we do limit any 3 Tony item at one time per library card. So that's something, I'm not sure if you have thought about that, Mary Kelly, of how many Tony items you want to check out. We don't do them in kits. It was just, for me, I think it was more for the record, like having to update the record every single time, like something changes to the kit. I'm just one person who does everything in workflow, so it's very hard for me to kind of work with having revised the record almost every single time if a character's missing. But and I used I think a 3x, I'm not sure if it was a 4x6 or 3x5 white index card, and I print everything double-sided on it, and it's in the kit character or on the Tony box, and has been working out very well.
So you said 3 Tony items, so that could be like a Tony box plus 2 figurines?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so 3 character, okay, 3 items. Well, thank you, everybody. And to piggyback off that, Claudia is going to talk to us about the Tony Box records. Claudia?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I thought would be a good seg to add a Tony Box pre-cat example here. Sometimes we get questions. How do we create pre-cats for Tony Boxes? So I added this information to the pre-cat examples on the sports site. And here you have an example of pre-cat and some tips. Enter the library 3-letter code and the 245 tag if the Tony Box pre-cat will be a local record. So you're going to enter your library 3-letter code. You're going to have your library name spelled out in the 246 tag, like following the same guidelines for local records. You're going to use a 590 kit, be descriptive in the 300 tag, like in the example. You can add a 505 table of contents tag if you like, as well as a summary to describe the Tony Box. And if applicable, precede UPCs with a Z when applicable. I'm not very familiar with the Tony Boxes, but the impression I get is that you can add figurines, remove figurines, and I don't know if every figurine comes with a UPC. So I'm just keep in mind, like if it has like a UPC and you're remove the UPC or add a Z when applicable. Yeah, so that's the example of pre-cat. Does anyone have any questions? It's not. Thank you.
And up next, we have Susanna talking about Nintendo Switch games.
Yes, thank you. There is a posting on the Swan forum again about what type of labels libraries use for the backing of the Switch games. As we know, the Switch games, the actual cartridge is very tiny. So if you use permanent marker, sometimes with the usage, it kind of smears away. And so the question was, what type of printer is used to create the labels? Does anyone use labels? I know I do, and I use the Brothers machine, and we haven't had any issues that I know of. But I don't know if anyone else uses a different label.
Is the Brothers a label printer,
Yes,
label maker? Like
label maker, yes.
Hi, this is Joy from Tinley Park. We use the Dymo Twin Turbo. We have a small little 2-part label, I think is what they're using, and they just trim it down to the size similar to what's in the example, but smaller.
I don't know if Carol Stream is on here, but I believe that is Carol Stream's picture that I swiped from the forums to put on there. I don't know what they use, if anyone is from Carol Stream, if they want to say.
And
Angela,
on our, sorry,
that-
I was confirming in our processing, and the only thing that we put on the label is the significant digits of the barcode. Basically, for us, it's the last 7 numbers. That's the only thing we put on it.
and
Here
Angela put in the chat that she uses a 1.5 by 0.5 label and they cut it into 4 parts. That makes sense.
Yeah, here at Palos, we kind of do the same. I think it's gonna be, with Joy, like it's much smaller. I think we only put the barcode. We don't put our library initials. And then the other thing is the case. How do libraries store these games, whether behind circulation or in a Switch case like the one on the slide, or I use the paper sleeve for CDs, and then we just use the barcode and a call number, just to kind of stay consistent with all the other games.
This is Joy at Tinley Park. because we've had, games for so long. Our facilities actually, built us some wooden drawers that were based on other, like a card drawer. And we use the audiobook sleeve, and on the audiobook sleeve, we put in the call number, the title of the game, and the barcode. And then the switch is inserted into that sleeve, because that's also how we do all of the console games.
And then do you have a dummy case on the shelf that the patron just brings
Yes.
up?
Yes, then we shelve the actual case, and there's a note in there saying, please bring to the checkout desk in order to receive the game.
We basically here at Glen Ellen do the same thing as Joy is doing, kind of like a little double storage. The actual game case, the colored artwork is all out for our members. And then we use this basically a disc sleeve that we can put either the cartridge or the discs in. It has the call number, the iReadable on it. So when somebody brings the case in, we find the little, we find the title and we put the item in the actual case, and we put the empty sleeve then in a different little box down in library services.
Does anyone place a copy of the game artwork inside the sleeve, just so for those games that same title, different series? I know we once had that issue with I think like a PS4, where it's the same series game, but it was just a different, kind of like a different edition of the game. I know Amy is posting, they use a 3-ring binder with trading card pages from Amazon. KO Stream uses the stores in the image. They put the number and insert to match them up. So I think we kind of all use the same system. Anything else? Does anyone else has anything to add? No, so we can move right along.
And Susanna, you're up next.
Yes, thank you. So this vinyl records, Kathy from ALSIP had posted something in this one forum yesterday, that their youth services is planning to adding to circulating vinyl records. And Kathy's asking if any libraries currently circulating vinyl records, and how are they being processed? Not sure if Kathy's in this meeting, but I seen online that there's these like vinyl boxes, I guess you can say, where you can store them. But we don't have vinyls here at Palos. Rebecca say they circulate vinyl records together in one kit. She actually, Kathy, if you want to check the chat, she actually added an example record here.
Yeah, I'm here right now. Yeah, they're trying to find single hard cases because they want to circulate each record differently, all as what's this on its own. So I was wondering if anyone had anything like that.
Well, if you come across something, make sure to reply, to check out these one forum, reply to Kathy so we all know. And if anyone is at the end deciding to add vinyl records throughout the year, we can go back into the conversation and kind of know what cases we're using and everything. Thank you.
Up next, we have inventories. This is more for a non-RFID using libraries. How do you conduct your inventories?
This is Kathy at LSIP again. As far as our inventory goes, when we process and enter an item to put on the shelf, we'll inventory it at that point. We haven't actually made any plans for a total collection inventory yet that I'm aware of, but that's kind of right now our way of knowing, hey, it made it to the shelf because it was inventoried right after we entered it.
So you don't go back and like do shelf reading or anything like that to make sure that the item is there?
Right now, no. I think we're gonna eventually make a whole collection inventory again. Just don't know what the time frame is for that.
Okay.
Okay, this is Joy from Tinley Park. We did an inventory. We started it, I think before the pandemic, and it because the pandemic took us a lot longer. And what we did is we had a barcode, a laptop with a barcode scanner. We take out a cart. What I had done is I had gone through all the different collections and numbered each shelving range. We have a clear label maker. And so it's like I numbered each one of them. Then for my purposes, I went to those ranges and took down like the call number range. And so basically anytime anyone went out, they were expected to at least complete the one range, which was, for the adult collection, basically 5 shelves. And they could basically do that in, I think, a half hour. And then they would mark on the sheet up here what they completed. And then Swan runs a report or ran a report for us, I think, every Wednesday evening. So then Thursday morning, I would run a report to see what was missed. And then I would have someone go out and see if they could find them, because maybe they were on a cart to be shelved and they weren't there yet. And then if they weren't found, then I checked them out to missing. And basically, like I said, I think it wound up taking us over a year to do both adult and children's. And we have yet to do the bookmobile because they're going through massive weeding, so I'm waiting for them to finish that.
Thank you, Joy.
Yeah, if you have any questions, need some more details or an example of how I did our progress report, please feel free to contact me.
Definitely will do. I know that it's been talked about here at Warrenville about doing it. And our member services manager was feeling a little bit daunted because we don't have RFID. So it would just be, like you said, taking a laptop with a scanner, barcode scanner, and going through the shelves. And she just was wondering how other libraries did it. But I will definitely give her your information if you're okay with that.
Oh, yeah. And basically the other thing is we had CERP staff, my tech staff do it because we did find call number errors. And so we had the permissions where we could then, make the correction right then and there. Whereas if we had someone else, a different clerk helping us, then any kind of error they had to bring up to us. And occasionally when we were doing the inventory, we found stuff that was on hold. So then we brought that to CERC. And I see part of the question is how often do you inventory? I want to say the last time I read up on it, they were recommending that libraries did it every 10 years.
Okay.
I know we were talking about maybe doing it every 5 years, basically because I think the 10 years previously was because you had to take out a shelf list, your card catalog, or you had to print out, the paper. And so that was a lot more time consuming. Whereas now with, the new technology, if you have a laptop, and I recommend using a laptop with a barcode scanner, that's in through your USB port. The handheld scanners are using an iPad. It's going to be very frustrating, in my opinion. And we just found it to be so much easier with the laptop and the barcode scanner.
That's good advice.
I would like to piggyback from Joy. So here at Palos, we Circ and Tech does inventory, and we do it every 3 years. The challenge that I kind of came across was that my staff and tech are more comfortable using computers, so they didn't mind using a laptop, a Surface, a tablet. But the search staff preferred paper. They preferred given sections and then on the paper exit out. And I'm more like, no, it's just Excel. You're done, date it, initial it, keep going. My staff enjoy going out on the shelves, scanning them. The search staff would rather pull the books and then scan. At the end, I just kind of met them halfway and said, just do the inventory, well, how you like it. It was too much going back and forth trying to make them use the computer. The way I did is just, I contacted Swan that I was going to do an inventory first thing versus this is the plan of the inventory. I went by item type, so I kind of gave them an idea what item types I'm going to start with. And then after I'm done with either one or multiple item types, I will email them. Can you run the report? And then this is my next batch. So for me, probably this is the second time we did it. The second time it took us less than a year, but the first time it took us a little like a year and a half to complete it. But anything, I would say either talk to Swan too. They kind of can have an idea of how libraries do it. I did it by item type. Everyone can do them by section, but to me, it was much more easier by item type.
I will speak for Swan. The report that everyone is talking about that Swan runs for you, we ask you for the home location and the item type that you are inventorying. And what we do is the report that we run will take anything that has a checked out status and it will update the last inventoried date field in the item record. So then when you are going out into your stacks and you're scanning each of those items, you're updating the last inventory date that way, either by using, a laptop if you have access to workflows, so you can use the Mark Inventory wizard within workflows, and some libraries do like to use the mobile staff. One of the benefits of using mobile staff to do inventory is as you're scanning your barcodes, once you start with your first item, it will tell you if an item is out of place on the shelf or in the wrong collection, so the home location. And as Joy alluded to, it will let you know if items are actually in transit or on hold, or if it's marked missing or things like that. So with that initial report that we run for you, if you're going to be doing a longer inventory, we will set that report to run for you once a week so that anything that is checked out, it is going to get that last inventory date updated for you because we know that it is checked out, so it is accounted for right now. It will not update anything that has status of lost. So if it's 42 days overdue, that means it's 42 days since you've really had access to that item. So it will not update those items at all. It has to be just a checked out status. So if you have any other questions, though, as Susanna said, just open a ticket and we'd be happy to talk through the process with you, and maybe even just talking a little bit about it on the forums too might be a good place as well. And there was one last thing I wanted to say. There are some libraries that just kind of do inventory on a running basis. It's just part of their part of what they do at the library, especially for, say, the AV collection, because that helps to keep their database rather clean and they're not looking for items that are no longer there.
Thank you so much. And
This is Joy from Tinley Park. I wanted to add one other thing, that when we were inventorying particular sections, when we were adding materials to that collection, before we would send them down to CERC, we would also put them through the inventory process. Because otherwise they would come up on the exception report.
Good to know. Thank you, everybody, and please do post the forums if you have any further information. But at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Sam.
Actually, it's me, Mary.
Oh, sorry,
It's
Claudia.
okay. It's Claudia again. I have my next two slides are just a couple of reminders. The first one is about the duplicate title wizard. I added there, use it to duplicate templates and precats. While it might seem like a good idea and a time-saving idea to duplicate full records, never do that. We cannot have 2 or more records with the same OCLC number in the system. That will come up in our duplicate records report. So we will get back to you if we see that you do use the duplicate title wizard to duplicate a full record. So only for precats and templates. And when you use the duplicate title wizard, be careful not to overwrite other libraries' templates. I put a link to the documentation on how to use that wizard. Just be extra careful if you do. Using the duplicate title wizard to duplicate full records will cause inaccurate holdings information in OCLC, and we don't want that. And also incorrect patron holds, because somebody might inadvertently merge 2 records that have the same OCLC number. So extra care if you are using this wizard. We can move on. Okay, and the 946 signature tag, that seems like a small thing, but it is required for precats and full records. It contains your library 3-letter code. We came across some records that had SWS for SWAN in the library code. So make sure, I think the person probably took the training or saw the examples on the support site that have SWS as the 946 tag. So if you're creating a precat or cataloging for your library, you have to enter your library 3-letter code, your initials, and the date the precat or the full record is being cataloged. So I put the format there. It's the 3-letter code, your initials, and the year, the month, and the day. We try to standardize that tag, because if you ever need a report, we can run a report on that tag, and you can find out how many records you cataloged in a certain period of time, or how many precats you created, that sort of stuff. So try to be like standard, try to follow the standard for the 946 tag. And I put the example there as well. If you have any questions about this or the duplicate title wizard, just let me know. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Now is it Sam?
I think we have Vicky up first.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. I'm next. I'm closing everything out today.
Okay.
We saved the best for last. That's why Sam is last. Okay, I want to just bring up the Blue Cloud Acquisitions reports that we have out there for helping you to clean up your acquisitions information in SWAN. The first one that I want to talk about is the order lines received or paid, but not loaded. So in Symphony, the order is considered open if the loaded field is set to never. And it seems like it's an interesting way of doing things. I'll just say it that way. You can have an order that has been received and paid, but if you don't have a loaded date in that order line, then since it is still considered an open order, items cannot be removed. So if you check your item out to discard, that item is not going to be able to be removed if there are open orders. And we also cannot remove fiscal cycles when there are open orders. So we can remove the orders that are complete, but these other orders will block us from being able to remove all of the orders with that fiscal cycle. So if you do, when you run the report, because we do want you to run the report to see if you have any, and most of the libraries do have some that are still open because they don't have a loaded date. In order to fix that, you're going to bring up the modify order wizard. And then for that order line, just go to the segments tab. And what we have on the screen here is you can see that this order, the order line, was paid in October of 2022, and it shows the amount, but that loaded date is never. So you're just going to click on the drop down for that loaded date, and you're going to change that. You can put the date paid if you want. You can put today if you'd like. It doesn't really matter what's in that field as long as it's a date. One of the other choices is just to put today. So it's either today or you can type in the loaded date. And some libraries do like to have that match the date paid. And that way, as we're running through the remove fiscal cycle, we'll be able to remove these old orders that are just kind of hanging around and blocking items from being removed. Any questions about that report? And if not, we can move to the next slide. So the other report that we want you to run is invoice fiscal year does not match order fiscal year. And this tends to happen when you roll over to the next fiscal cycle. If you miss updating the fiscal cycle in your, if you miss, sorry about that. If you miss updating the fiscal cycle in your invoice report, or if you have not updated the fiscal cycle in your session settings. So what will happen is your invoice report runs, and when the invoice is loaded, you can see at the top there, it shows that this invoice was created in fiscal cycle 2023. So that's in the invoice tab when you're looking at that. But when you go to the invoice lines, you can see that the fiscal cycle for all of those orders is actually 2024. So in order to fix something in this case, you can go to modify invoice and go to the invoice tab, and you can change that created in fiscal cycle so that it will match the fiscal cycle that is in each of your invoice lines there. So in this case, when we are ready to remove fiscal cycle 2023, we won't be able to remove that invoice because the invoice lines are actually spent in fiscal cycle 2024.
Hey, Vicki, this is Anne-Marie.
Mhm.
So is this the issue that we have after a rollover where we suspend our invoice reports until after the rollover, and that those few days that they're suspended, the invoice, the EDI invoice is coming through as 2023, and then when we look at it, there's no title linked?
It kind of leads to that. So what happens in that instance is the invoice was most likely created at the vendor before they updated your fiscal cycle.
Correct.
So part of that rollover process is to contact any of the vendors where you use 9XX and EDI and ask them to update the fiscal cycle in all of your open orders. Well, if the invoice was already created, that fiscal cycle is still going to show 2023 in the order. So because you have moved on to fiscal cycle 2024, you're not seeing that title there because it's still looking for the 2023 order, which we removed because you rolled over to 2024. So That's actually the opposite of what happened here. So you might
Okay.
have fiscal cycle, your invoice, you updated your invoice report. So the invoice was created in fiscal cycle 2024, but when you look at the invoice lines, they say 2023. So that's where you have to go out and link it to the order that you rolled over. So you have to go into each invoice line and update the purchase order.
Right.
And we can
Okay,
help you
so
with that if you have issues with that.
yeah, it's usually only like the first week
Mhm.
after the rollover that
Right.
things aren't linking correctly because we do call the vendors to have our prefix, our
Mhm.
fiscal year prefix changed. So that's not the issue. It's just that overlap of stuff from the time we suspended our invoice reports to the rollover to changing over having our vendors change over the prefix to
Mhm.
the new fiscal year. And there's just some things that aren't quite linking. I mean, it's not a lot by any means, but there are some. So I was wondering if this was it or not, but I don't think it is.
Right. It can be that too. You have that wherever you have that difference in the fiscal cycle, it's going to be an issue. And like you
Okay.
said, when you do have that issue where the title is not showing, but it has all the other information, that's exactly why it does that. Because the invoice came through with the 2023 order information, and now that's no longer there. So I think a lot of that happens because the vendor, either they took an extra day to update the fiscal cycle in your orders, your open orders, or like I said, that invoice, they may have shipped the items before you
Correct.
contacted them, and that invoice is already created then.
Correct. So when would be the best time to run this report? Would it be before
Definitely. These two reports
before we
that
start ordering again, before the rollover, right after the rollover? When should this particular report be run?
if I were still at a library, when I was at a library, these types of cleanup reports, I was running them on a monthly basis, just so you can kind of stay on top of it. I am going to ask you to run these two reports specifically that are in the presentation here. I'm going to ask you to run them now because we are removing fiscal cycles.
I am
And-
actually running one right now.
Well, I didn't mean right now, but Anne Marie, you are
You know,
good.
curiosity, curiosity.
Yes, I understand that completely. And I can also share my screen. I do have one of them up now, and let me go ahead and share that.
I guess other people are running reports too.
Yes. So I did run this one. So the fiscal rollover cleanup list open order lines received but not loaded. This one you definitely want to run prior to your fiscal rollover, because if you don't run this and clean up your orders, you're going to roll over orders that you've already paid for. So you'll have an extra order in there, and you don't want that. So you can see here that these are not loaded, and this is paged by library. And I promise if Addison is here, I'm not picking on you. You are brand new to Swan, and you just happen to be at the top of the list here. But if we come down to, so Glen Ellen, you have nothing here. Good for you. So some of
I
this
was going to say, I just ran this and it came back with no data. And I thought, oh, did I do
that's
something
why
wrong?
you did not.
Okay.
And who else was running? Which other library was running the reports? If we come over here, if we look at Indian
Ridge.
Prairie, you only have one. Okay. So for a lot of libraries, it's really not a lot. But you can see that some of these do go back quite a ways. And as we're removing fiscal cycle 2021 right now, these two orders will not be able to be removed because while they have been paid, they're not loaded. So they were funded, they were received, and they were paid, but since they're not loaded, they're still considered open. And the other report then is the invoice created fiscal cycle does not match.
Vicky, there's a question on the
Yes.
chat. So if their code is not there, they don't have any open
That's
orders.
correct. Well,
Eek.
you may have open orders, but it's not open because you didn't load it. So that first report was it's either been paid, received, or invoiced, but it's not loaded. So
So now for these, do I go in and what field am I modifying to get these cleaned up?
okay, so when you look at these first three here, they're all in the same invoice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the invoice was created in 2021, but the orders have fiscal cycle 2022. So
Yeah,
most
these are-
likely in this case, those your invoice report was not updated to the new fiscal cycle. So
Right,
your
because
orders rolled
probably
over,
that little
right?
area of craziness before the rollover. So yeah, that's what I'm
Mhm.
thinking.
Right, and it may be that you did not update your scheduled report. Sometimes what we see happen is you'll update your template in workflows for the invoice report, but if you don't update the scheduled report as well, then that's going to keep the old information. So updating the template does not update your scheduled report.
Okay, I believe we do. And like
Okay.
I said, I think this is where we suspend our invoices, but things are still coming in.
Mhm. That's definitely for these.
And I think these are some of the ones that are falling a little odd.
Mhm.
So now how would I clean these up then?
So for this one here, you're going to go into modify invoice and you want to click on the invoice tab. So when you go to modify invoice, it always opens up on the invoice lines tab. So you want to click over to the invoice tab, and that is, I'm going to stop sharing. And if you could show the PowerPoint again and go back to that report.
Can you see it?
No,
Oh,
there you
Is it-
go. Yes. So this is within, whoops, and you want to go back one more?
oh, sorry. How do I go back?
No worries. You should have a little arrow maybe at the bottom where you can click on to go back.
Or your keyboard arrow.
Oh,
your
yes,
left
thank you.
Arrow key may work as well.
Perfect. So this is, if you look at the top image there, that is this invoice brought up in modify invoice, but I've clicked on the invoice tab. So
Okay.
the bottom one is what opens up in modify invoice, right? You see all the invoice lines. That's what you're used to seeing. But right next to that is the invoice tab, and that's where you'll find that created in fiscal cycle. And you can just click on that drop down and then adjust this to 2024 in this case, or in your case for those Midwest tape invoice, then you're going to adjust that to 2022.
Okay, so the 2021s get adjusted to 2022,
Mhm.
2022 gets adjusted to 2023.
Whatever the orders are looking at, you want to make them match. So whatever's in the invoice lines, you want to make that match what's in the
Okay.
invoice.
So the fiscal cycle for the order lines should match the created in fiscal year
On the
cycle.
invoice tab, correct?
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank
You
you,
just want to
Vicky.
make
I
them
appreciate
match.
it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That will allow us to get rid of some more acquisition stuff that's kind of just sitting around that really could be removed. And if you do find that you have a lot of them, feel free to open a ticket with us and we can look into why that's happening, either for the fiscal year order fiscal cycle does not match, or for why your orders are not being loaded when they're being invoiced and paid. Okay.
Thank you, Vicky.
Absolutely. Happy to help.
Okay, it's me. So I just wanted to announce that we do have some new office hours for 2024, specifically for acquisitions. So please mark your calendars, come with any acquisitions questions you have. However, if you look at when they're timed around when most of our fiscal years end. We have 4 fiscal years that are represented in SWAN and 3 of that are the largest groups. So as Vicky and all really helpfully demonstrated, a lot of questions that we get are around fiscal and rollover. So we tried to time them in that manner so that most of the questions that might be occurring to you would be around those times. But that being said, that those are for open forum. I mean, I'm sure you're all familiar with office hours we've held in the past and continue to have. So, all acquisitions focused questions, Blue Cloud acquisitions or Symphony acquisitions and rollover specific are great and welcome. And we hope that we will see you there. The next one is March 19th, and they are all at 2 p.m. this year. Okay, we do have an activity slated and we are going to be not recording for that. So before we get to that, I did want to pass it back to the co-chairs real quick, just in case anyone wants open discussion. We don't want to lose any of your questions that you may have come to this meeting and not submitted beforehand on the recording. So take it away.
Hi, this is Anne-Marie again. I'm so sorry. I just had a question about the audio enabled books, the Wonder Books, the Vox books. We have been noticing that some of the records that are coming in are basically coming in as a book, being cataloged as a book. I was just wondering, and then some of them are being cataloged, if it's a large print, as a large print book. Are these supposed to be cataloged in a book format or in an audio format?
This is Joy from Tinley Park. I can answer this because based on OCLC, one of their ask hours, they are supposed to be classed or cataloged as audiobooks. And there's a few libraries that have not gotten that memo. Whenever I get something like that, if it's a certain encoding level, I can update it to an audiobook. Otherwise, if it's another encoding level, I have to submit a trouble ticket to OCLC and they will make the corrections.
Okay. All right. Because we've been, I've just been noticing in OCLC and in workflows that they're kind of all over the place. We had noticed that because we do have some large print titles or something. I don't recall what it was, but it was like, they're kind of all over the place. And I thought, well, they seem more like an audio. So I'm not exactly sure why they're classifying it, formatting it as a book. So that is good to know. I appreciate that tidbit of information. The other thing I had was there was an email that came out recently, and I guess I'm just a little confused by it. It's about the records manager switch for cataloging libraries. Is this something that cataloging libraries is there a meeting that we're supposed to attend? Is there something we're supposed to be doing, or is this just all behind the scenes?
Anne-Marie, are you talking about the cataloging library in-person meeting?
No, this was another email that said something about the record manager switch, and the email said that this was only for cataloging libraries, and not to worry if you're not a cataloging library.
Okay.
So I don't know, maybe this is about the meeting that is coming up.
No. So the confusion came in where Rails put out a newsletter and just talked about the records manager switch for connection browser. And
Yes.
we started getting questions from SWAN membership if this impacted them. And it was coming from both cataloging libraries and non-cataloging libraries. And the bottom line is it did not impact us at all because it only one impacts those libraries that use Connection Browser to catalog. And two, if you're not cataloging already, chances are you weren't using Connection Browser, so you would not have to worry about the switch to Records Manager.
Excellent.
So-
I am so happy with that clarification. Thank you, Cynthia.
No problem. I was a little concerned myself about when I first saw the browser email way back in October. And I was like, and I happened to be meeting with a rep from OCLC. And I just wanted to verify that there was no future plans to get rid of Connection Client. And she assured me, she's like, oh no, we use Connection Client ourselves, and that's not going to go away. So we're pretty good. We use the desktop version of Connection Client. It has nothing to do with Records Manager. It was all basically the web version of Connection Client, which is their
Okay.
Connection browser that's going away.
Excellent. I appreciate the clarification. Thank you, Cynthia.
No problem.
I've added a link to the news post that went out on the Swan Support site. So if somebody wants to take a look.
And that said, hi, this is Scott Brandwine. That said, the OCLC Record Manager is available to all Swan libraries. It is part of your subscription to OCLC through the state. And we have on occasion used it to manually maintain holdings when our automated holdings service, makes a mistake or whatever it is. So if there is any reason that you feel that you would like access to Record Manager and just to use it or experiment with it, we can make sure that you have an admin login and everything. We've got kind of the master key. Most of you should already have that set up. We can tell you what it is. Though on occasion we've found a couple who we needed to set up, and it's a real quick process. So if that is something that interests you, feel free to send in a ticket and somebody will walk you through it. Also, that said, I don't love the interface of Record Manager. There's like not, I can't think of like a use case personally. So I wouldn't, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, and like that you're missing out on something, assuage those fears. There's not really anything urgent that you need to find out about within that interface, I would say. It's my personal recommendation.
Also, it does not work with Mark Listener for any of our cataloging libraries that we've now moved to Mark Listener. So that is a enhancement request for Circe Dynix. So I would also steer clear of it myself. I was not a fan, whereby it works similarly to Connection Client. It is not Connection Client. It is not anywhere close to Connection Client. That's my opinion. But I did want to answer Nicolette's question. Nicolette, are you talking about the subfield I's or if I'm not mistaken, is it subfield I? After this 100 and the 700s?
I believe so, but I've been seeing like URLs like after an author name or like down in the 700s, and I'm like, it doesn't really look all that great in the record, and I was wondering if that gets left in or not.
So the verdict is, if you remove them, you remove them. If you don't, you don't. It has zero impact on searching. It has zero, it's more of a display issue. So it is not, it's really meant to help people behind the scenes link to other records. So it's more of a display issue for cataloging people in workflows, but it has zero impact in Aspen.
It does show in Aspen though, doesn't it?
In the staff part, if you go to all the way down in the staff part.
Okay, because I thought in a few of my records it was showing in the screen where the patron sees.
Then I don't know if we're talking about the same URL. We'll have
Well,
to look.
do you
'Cause
want me
there's a
to?
couple of them. Yeah, put in a ticket and we'll take a look at it.
Okay,
Talk about the
I'll
same
find a
one.
few examples. Thank you.
Yeah, because like in it doesn't impact Aspen so much, like, so that's why I want to clarify which one are you referring to, because I know we do have something for Aspen regarding subjects, but
Okay.
I'm not sure about the 100 or the 700.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for your participation. Don't go anywhere because Sam's got an activity. But Joy, thank you. And I will be reaching out to you about the inventories, and anybody else that wants to contribute, please post on the community forums. We would greatly appreciate it, as would those who posed the questions.
I did add the links to the 2 reports, the Blue Cloud Analytics reports that we talked about today. I added the links to those in the chat, and I'll make sure that that I include the link in the presentation before it's posted, okay?
Okay, if there are no other questions for open discussion, I'll give you one last call. Okay, hearing nothing, I'm just going to thank our co-chairs because I am going to stop the recording here for the
Actually,
activity.
sorry,
Mhm.
Sam, I
Yeah, go
couldn't
ahead, Joy.
unmute fast enough. I do have a question. Is anyone using the Amazon Business Prime? I know I've asked this before, and I'm having a problem wrapping my brain around certain functions because Amazon's not giving any description. So I was wondering if anyone's using it and has added users or groups, and how is that working for you?
Joy, this is Rebecca at LaGrange. We are using Amazon Prime, but we have a very small, we only have 10 users right now. We have a limit of 10 users on the account that we have.
Are they all requisitioners, or can they actually place the order?
I think we have right now, we have, because of some changes in our administration, I think we have 4 administrators, and then we have different people. Some people are like acquisition, or I'm sorry, requisitioner, as well as we allow the admin. So we really only have 10 people, but some people have 2 roles.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering how the groups work.
We have, our groups are like, we have 3 departments at our library: public services, access services, and administration, and that's how our groups are set up. But we only have the managers because we can only have 10 people in our account, so that's how ours is set up.
Okay, so for the group, is it to like a departmental email, or is it to an individual?
Each of ours, each of the 10 people has their own individual email. But then but then there's like a group, so you would be in public services or administration.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of those things, it's like, I just don't really have the time or the people to sit down and play and figure out how some of this could be used. And Amazon Help is not helpful.
Yeah, feel free. We can have a conversation about it. I know that we just got assigned a representative in 2023, and now we have a new representative in 2024, and they were the ones that helped me set it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I don't want to cut anyone off. We have plenty of time. Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, yes. So thank you for the co-chairs for this wonderful meeting. It's not over yet, but I'm going to stop the recording. That being said, I will recap the activity that we were about to do, and it's just kind of a summary of what was discussed in the meeting notes. So for people listening to the recording, there will be something posted there. But I will stop it now. Thanks, everyone.